Now, can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we are going to create a project for revising higher order components. Higher order components is not too much complex topic, but the render props pattern is little bit involved. So we'll be focusing on that. Uh, they both work together because when we create a higher order component, when we are using a component which is relying on the render props pattern, then we have to create a higher order component so that we can consume that logic. For example, we are creating a component which is fetching the data. Now we need a component because we are used to passing the props to the component and then the component renders on the screen. So higher order components are like a function. They expect us to provide a component and then they return a component. Now we have to hold that component in a variable so that we can use it in our JSX code. So let's see how we can do that. I haven't generated the boilerplate project. So I'm creating it now. So this is just an empty project like we are used to doing. Have you experimented with some of the other UI toolkits other than Bootstrap? Any one of you? Because Bootstrap is just one of the UI toolkits. There are many other UI toolkits you can use. You can search here React UI toolkits. There are more than 20. You can see 20 plus component libraries. So there's Ant Design, then there's Material Kit. Bootstrap is a little bit boring, you can say, but there are so many other UI toolkits like this, Shards, React. Let's uh, let's try one of them today. Semantic UI is also good. Let's see. You can see here so many components, just like we have in Bootstrap. Uh, you can see list, loader. This is a bit different from Bootstrap because this is the whole design language. Every UI toolkit has its own design language. So let's try to use this toolkit today. I'm trying to find the code snippets. So you must know how to install a UI toolkit, not just UI toolkit, any npm package. So this is just another npm package. You can go and see there are steps listed, but you just have to know the name and you should be able to install it. So you can see here there's a statement yarn add, and there are two npm packages. semantic UI React and semantic UI CSS. So we'll copy it. And then what we have to do, we have to import this semantic main CSS in our main file, apps entry file. Which one is an apps entry file? App.js. So we have to insert that import statement here, and then this is all we have to do. Okay, so let's take an example of button. Okay. We have to import a button from semantic UI React, and then we can use it. Import button. Okay, you can see here we have a bit different looking button than we are used to. Like we have been using Bootstrap since day one. Now we have switched to semantic UI. Now this button looks differently. So remember what we did in the example? We had fetched some data from the API, and then we were rendering it in a list, in an ordered list. So let's see how an ordered list is created in this semantic UI library. List. You can see list here. Now you can just copy paste. Okay. So the whole idea of keeping the logic for fetching the data separate is uh, that we want to factor out the logic from the component. We don't want to make the component complex. Like when you see any React component or any React class or a function which has more than 100 lines, let's say, or there is exactly a magic number which we refer to, and then we say that this function or this class is too long, then we need to refactor it. So it happens very often that React components uh, grow too large, and then we have to refactor it. So one of the examples is that the logic for fetching is spread all over the components. Like every React component is fetching the data, but on a different URL. But the logic remains the same. We have some URL and the results come, then we parse the result, because every URL has a separate structure. So we have to collect that data in a different data structure every time. So we create a data provider component. So let's create a component here. Data provider. Okay. So this is the mandatory import statement. Then we'll create our data provider component. Okay. Now, what should be the input of this component? We need to know the URL which we need to hit. So we'll take a URL parameter. Okay. And then this function is responsible for fetching So when do we fetch? When the component is mounted in the DOM tree. Okay. Now we have a callback. We have a hook actually, which is called after the component is mount in the DOM tree. Which one is that? Can any one of you tell me? Hook which triggers after component is mount. Use effect. Do you know the signature of use effect? It should be obvious now. We have been using it for so long. Okay. So this is the dependency. This is the array which you declare your dependencies in. So for in this example, this is empty. So this logic will only execute once. When the component is mount, this logic will execute and it will never execute again. The reason why I'm saying the logic will never execute because normally components are re-rendered every time the state changes. So if we don't provide this, then this effect will execute every time the component is unmounted and then mounted. Components keep mounting and unmounting by React. Okay, so we have to pass an empty array here. This could be a question in your exam. This exam was too simple, too easy, but you should expect more challenging questions in the next exam, and there will be assignments as well. Okay, so we are using the fetch API. Where this fetch API comes from? Is it a React API or something else? This is actually a browser API. Your browser provides this. When you go in Chrome or Firefox and open the developer console, you can use this function. This has nothing to do with React. You won't find the fetch method in Node.js environment because Node.js environment is not a browser environment and it is developed separately from the browser. They have their own APIs. Node.js is server-side framework, server-side runtime, and browser is your client side. The things available in browser don't necessarily need to be available in server runtime. So fetch is one of them. In order to use fetch, you have so many clients in uh, Node.js like Axios, which is used for fetching the data or making HTTP requests. So we'll use fetch here, and what fetch does, fetch returns the promise, and we use then function on promise, and inside the response we have a JSON function which we need to call on response object. Then we get a JSON object in the next chain, which we call here, let's say response or JSON. Okay, JSON dot results. Now you have to inspect the result, but now we know that the URL we have been using, it has a results key, and then we will use the map operator or map higher order function on results dot map. We will map each result to a person object. Okay, now we have the data over here. Uh, the result of map we will receive over here. Okay. Then name. We have got the data. Now how will we go about passing the data downstream to other components? The components which need to consume this data have to be downstream. The data provider has to be a parent of it. Okay. So first of all, let's process this data in a state variable. Use the state. Initially it is empty. Do I need to explain this again? Use the state. If anybody has any confusion what this set data is and how we are getting the result. Okay, we'll move forward. So the pattern we were discussing was the render props. Okay. Now this function will pass the data. You can get. It will also receive a component. Do you see what's being done here? We are returning the component which we received in the prop, then passing the fetch data to its data prop. So in this way, any component you can replace here, any component like list or table which you have made yourself, and you are passing the data prop inside its prop. Then you can just plug in here in this placeholder, and this component will fetch the data and pass the data to that component. Let's see. Uh, on list. Item. Data dot map item list of items. Okay, so now we have to use a data provider component. Okay. Data provider. We have to create a function with data. We have to actually wrap it here. data provider. Props. Okay. Now we can use the data inside our list component. List. I'm just keeping the components separate so that I can import them. Yeah. Data provider. We have to import the data provider as well. Import data provider. Oh, we are already in data provider. Data source. Now, but we don't have data over here. So actually, this code. Uh, let me finish it, then I'll explain. Okay. Um, this is a little bit challenging topic, so it gets out of a little bit difficult to wrap your head around sometimes. Hmm. Okay. Okay. Now it looks good. So this is your higher order components and render props together. So this is the higher order component. Okay. And you can actually omit this guy here and pass like this. Props. So just component getting in and another component getting out. And you can plug in component here. Okay. So the data we get from the provider is this. So how this is being done here? This is called render props. So this data provider doesn't know how to render the component. So this just makes available its data in this callback over here. This is called render prop. This is a special kind of prop which we can pass as as children components. If you want to make it simple, this is just a prop which is called render, and it is like this. Actually, it is a function. Render is a function, and we have to make it enclosed in curly braces, and this is your normal function. The data is pushed by this component, data provider, and you have to consume that data and pass it to the component which you are receiving in the prop of the hierarchical component. Okay, so let's try to use it now. App import. With data. Now we are going to wrap our list with we are going to pass the list parameter list component to with data, and we'll receive a brand new component. We can call it list or data list. Okay. So now you just have to give it a URL, data list URL equals GPS, just like this, and it should work. If it doesn't work, then we'll debug it. But ideally, it should work. Why it's not found? Okay. We have to export it. Export default. And these are just compile errors. You can fix it easily. Okay, so it says render is not defined. Okay. These are props, so we have to enclose in curly braces. Okay, nothing was returned from data collector. Render. Yeah, okay. We can put a debug statement here so that we can see what's going on. So the data is being received as an empty array. So we have to look why why the data is an empty array. So back to the data provider component, and let's see how we can name. Actually, this logic is a little bit buggy. So the names are being initialized as an empty array. So let's put an intermediate. We have the name. Then let's see, these are being set as well. Hmm, now we have name. Hmm. So the component is receiving the data. Hmm, okay. Let's look at the list. I'm going to remove the unnecessary debuggers. So it will be focus on the list only. I think the list is not being invoked at all. List. Hmm. Yeah, hmm. Oh, we are not actually using our list. We are using the semantic UI React component. List from list. So let me just plug in the charger. This is actually causing the infinite loop because we are not using the list from semantic UI. This is our own list component. You can see because they both have same name, so it is uh, causing the confusion. List import list from UI React. We have to rename it semantic list or S. Yeah, we are getting the names. Now we have check element of list. Element type is in let's try one thing we can do is space of oh okay. we also have to use the renamed version of list here. It's not item. So you can see here, we have got a list uh, just by using the higher order component and the render props. We just did the data list, which we got by passing our actual list inside the higher order function. We got a higher order component, and then we are just passing a URL here. We can change it as well, like data list URL equals. We can put the URL same, but change the results property, results param. Let's say we are making a 20. See, if you didn't have this kind of approach, then you had to write the map or iterate over the results, and then again, this is just the change of parameter, just like we have another version of representation. We have our table component as well. Let's say table.js thing React. We are keeping the names different so that they don't clash with the semantic UI library.
Excuse me, Abdul Fatah.
Yes, sir.
Uh, can you repeat the whole process? The students are saying if you can
Okay.
repeat or you can
Hmm.
summarize you have done in a
Okay.
quick way.
Okay. Okay.
Then
Okay.
maybe you can just
So,
create one more component or whatever.
huh. Okay. So we were about to create the table component. We have our list representation. Now we are going to represent our data in tabular form. So I'm going to show how we can use this method to achieve that. Okay. So let me create the table component first, then I'll summarize the whole thing again. So from the data table component, we just have to return the representation code, not the fetching one. Okay. So we have to import the table component from semantic library table. You can find it on the website as well. So we'll just copy it. Okay, now this part is based on the iteration. So we'll remove it. We don't need a footer. Table.row, table.cell. You just have to remember this table.row and table.cell. Again, we will receive some data in props and we'll iterate it over here. Data.map item, and each item will be transformed to a table cell. Okay. Uh, Table row, sorry, table.row, and then we can pick any of the properties from the item and uh, use them in our cells. Table.cell. We just have name, so it's itself item. Okay. Now, when we will add more complexity into this example, then we'll see how we can use objects inside uh, the data. So this is just a name. This is a string, so we are using it over here. Okay. I think we had some label as well. Yeah. label. No, we don't need to use label. We have to export it. Export. Okay, so this is done. We have created a table and we have just used our items and to generate some cells, rows and cells. So how we will use it here? Simply you will say table equals with data and will import your own table component here. Data table from and that's it. You have to use it over here. Like table URL again same. You can just copy paste it. Landed right yet. See, we have got our table. Earlier it was list, and now we have our table using the data provider. So you just have to focus on these lines. Uh, these lines are very simple. This is a function. This takes your component, which is a dumb component, which doesn't know how to render the data on the screen. But this component uses the uh, data provider internally. Okay. This component actually knows how to show the data, but doesn't know how to fetch the data. And when we pass it in the with data function, it actually creates a new component, which is which keeps your component wrapped in the data provider component. So there's a layer upon your component, which is responsible for fetching the data. Is it clear? This is the whole uh, logic of implementing the data provider. You have a render prop, and it is a function like a callback. What are callbacks? Callbacks are functions which you don't invoke, which are invoked by some other function working behind the scenes. In case of React, we have so many callbacks like use effect. Now we provide the code. Let me show you data provider. Now you have provided this code here, but you don't invoke it. The framework is responsible for invoking it, and when the framework thinks that it is the right time to invoke it, then the function gets invoked. Now the same situation is over here in our higher order component. This is our higher order component, and you said that whenever the data arrives, you have to do this. You have to return a component which is wired with data you get from the data provider component. Data provider component will provide this data. It will fetch the data and it will uh, call your method, this method. This is actually an anonymous function, a lambda function. Okay. Now, if you see the data provider, it is calling your function with the data. Okay. It's very simple. It's fetching the data and calling your code, the callback you provided with the fetch data. So it ends up being over here, over here. And you just plug it into your component and you receive a new component. This is your new component. Any questions?
Sorry. Okay. Okay. Abdul Fattah,
GG?
if they are requesting, if you can just quickly recap the steps you did
Hmm.
for list component and
Okay.
data type
Okay.
component. Just
Okay.
to
Okay.
recap in a graphical way, maybe. To just
First of all, we created a provider component. I can erase the code and do it again if you say.
no.
Okay,
They are
so
saying no need to write the
let's say,
code. Just explain. Huh?
Mhm. Okay, so you have to understand this concept. I'm sharing you some links. VHS. This is an advanced guide, and you have render props over here. And there is also a example like mouse tracker. We can do it here, so you'll get a better idea. So let's do this example. This is in class-based approach. You can see there are classes. We'll do it in functional way. Now, the whole idea of this example is that you have made a component which is actually listening to mouse events. You are moving your mouse around, and the component is actually reacting to those mouse events. Okay. Now, one component knows the X and Y of the cursor, but it doesn't know what to do with them. So you create a function, you create another component which actually depends on those X and Y coordinates. So you have a mouse tracker component here, and you can see the final picture of this example uh, over here. Yeah, there's a component and there's a mouse tracker component. Now they have named it cat, so you can visualize it that the cat is after the mouse. So wherever your mouse goes, the cat follows it. So visually, it will appear like when you move your mouse around, the cat image will also follow the cursor. Okay. So what's the purpose of doing this? So the purpose of doing this is you can replace the tracker component with any component. Like if you can replace it with the dog. So you won't need to change the mouse tracker component, the mouse component. Mouse is only responsible for tracking the mouse movement. So it's done and its responsibility is clear and it doesn't need to be changed. So it also gives you the flexibility. The flexibility is achieved by this pattern. These are also called the cross-cutting concerns. Cross-cutting concerns means the concern of listening to events is something else, and what to do with those events is something else. So they should be separate. So let's try to reproduce this example. I'm moving this whole code in somewhere else. Uh, Maybe we can commit it, and I'll create a new branch.
Abdul Fattah.
You said?
Okay. First, I think if you can just recap the code you have written for list and table, then we can go for a house and get.
Okay.
Is it?
Okay. Yeah. Actually, the example was more visual, so I was trying to reproduce as an example so that the render props concept is clear. And this example which we have done, it's a more advanced version of that. So I was thinking that
Okay,
maybe
so
we
first
should,
you can go
yeah,
for mouse kit, then you can come back to this code.
yeah,
No issue.
it
Okay.
will make more sense. Yeah. Okay, I'm committing it in the Git repository. Okay, let's create a component called mouse. Okay, mouse only listens to mouse event. So function mouse use effect. Let's see how it's done, because in classes components you have okay, this is the, you just have a div. Okay, and on that div you have move on mouse move, and then you have to you will get an event, and you have to persist that event in its state. You have to update the state of the mouse component. So you have to use a state variable. It's null. And position, that's position. So we have created a position variable, and we will set our xy coordinates in that object, x0 and y0. Let's keep it that way. E dot, we have client x and e dot client y. Okay, so set position x, e dot client x, y, e dot client y. Okay, so this part is done. So the mouse knows the xy coordinates. Okay, now we have another component called mouse, or just, yeah, we can say mouse tracker. Uh, can you please give me a moment, because there's an important message. I just need to respond to them.
Okay, okay, sure.
Just few minutes. Okay, I'll join the meeting again. Do I need to end the meeting? Uh, is there any leave option, or do I need to end the entire meeting? हेलो। अच्छा, मेरी आवाज आ रही है? हेलो।
Yes, you can start.
ओके। अच्छा, तो हम डिस्कस कर रहे थे माउस ट्रैकर के एग्जांपल। माउस कंपोनेंट हमने बना लिया, उसके अंदर एक्स एंड वाई कोऑर्डिनेट्स आ गए। अब हम चाहते हैं कि मतलब जैसे जैसे माउस की पोजीशन चेंज हो तो एक इमेज हो, हम कोई इमेज उठा लेते हैं कैट की, जैसे हम चाहते हैं कि इमेज फॉलो हो, मतलब कर्सर जिस तरह मूव होता है इमेज में फॉलो करें। तो पहले हम बिना रेंडर प्रॉक्स के हम करके देखते हैं, फिर हम रेंडर प्रॉक्स यूज करके डिफरेंस देखेंगे, क्या मतलब उसका बेनिफिट होता है। हम्म, ठीक है, ये इमेज हम उठा लेते हैं और उसके लिए हमें एक कंपोनेंट बनाना पड़ेगा अलग से, जिसका नाम रखेंगे कैट डॉट जेएस। अब इसके अंदर सिंपली एक इमेज टैग होगा एचटीएमएल का, रिटर्न इमेज। ठीक है। अच्छा, अब बेसिक एचटीएमएल का एक कॉन्सेप्ट है, अगर आपको किसी पर्टिकुलर एक्स एंड वाई पे आपको रखना हो कंपोनेंट को, उसकी प्लेसमेंट को चेंज करना हो तो किस तरह करते हैं? लेफ्ट लेफ्ट और टॉप हम बताते हैं इसको, एचटीएमएल को। स्टाइल के अंदर जाके पोजीशन एब्सोल्यूट करते हैं और लेफ्ट बताते हैं, फिर स्क्रीन के लेफ्ट से कितने कोऑर्डिनेट और टॉप से कितने कोऑर्डिनेट। तो वही हम करेंगे यहाँ पे। अब इसके अंदर हम सिंपली इसको बताएंगे कंपोनेंट प्रॉप्स के अंदर कि इसकी एक्स एंड वाई क्या होने चाहिए। ठीक है, या सही है एक्स वाई, और स्टाइल पोजीशन एब्सोल्यूट, लेफ्ट आपका होता है एक्स, टॉप वाई। ठीक है, अब कैट को हम करके देखते हैं रेंडर। ये वाला कोड मैंने पुश कर दिया है, तो मैं इसको भी हटा रहा हूँ। कैट को एक्सपोर्ट नहीं किया हमने, एक्सपोर्ट ठीक है, कैट रेंडर हो रही है सही से। अब हम क्या करेंगे सिंपली, अब हम जो लॉजिक हमने लिखी है एक्स एंड वाई को फॉलो करने की, उसको हमें यूज करना है। अब लेट से हम कन्वेंशनल अप्रोच से हम करते हैं, ठीक है। अब हम क्या करेंगे सिंपली, एक कंपोनेंट बनाएंगे, एक एक्स्ट्रा कंपोनेंट बनाएंगे, बल्कि इसी के अंदर ही हम चेंज करते हैं, माउस ट्रैकर के अंदर। माउस ट्रैकर, माउस, ठीक है। इसी डिव के अंदर हम क्या करेंगे, हम अपना कैट वाला कंपोनेंट यूज करेंगे। कैट एक्स इक्वल्स पोजीशन डॉट एक्स, वाई इक्वल्स पोजीशन डॉट वाई। कैट को ये दो प्रॉप्स चाहिए, क्योंकि हमने कंपोनेंट जब बनाया था तो उसके अंदर हमने एक्स और वाई डिक्लेयर किए थे, तो ये हमें प्रोवाइड करने पड़ेंगे। अच्छा, ये हो गया। अभी हम इसका रिजल्ट देखते हैं। इसका नाम हमने रखा है माउस, ठीक है, माउस। ठीक है, ये देखें, ये फॉलो हो रहा है, सही है। अच्छा, अब लेट्स से हमें इसकी जो रिप्रेजेंटेशन है, मतलब एक्स एंड वाई की, अब एक्स और वाई को हमने यूज किया है माउस को, कैट को मूव करने के लिए। फॉर एग्जांपल अगर हमारे पास कोई और कंपोनेंट होता, डॉग होता या कुछ भी होता, क्रॉस हेयर, मतलब अगर हमें रिप्लेस करना है अपने कर्सर को एक क्रॉस हेयर के साथ, तो हमें वो कोऑर्डिनेट्स चाहिए, सिर्फ कोऑर्डिनेट्स चाहिए। तो अब हर दफा अगर फॉर एग्जांपल डॉग से रिप्लेस करते हैं, तो डॉग एक कंपोनेंट बनाएंगे और फिर एक और कंपोनेंट बनाएंगे जिसके अंदर इस तरह मैं अब करके दिखाता हूँ। इसका नाम हम रखेंगे कैट माउस विद कैट डॉट जेएस, और डॉग विद माउस डॉट जेएस, इस तरह। अब इसके अंदर दोबारा हमें वो जो कोड है सारा ये वाला, जिसके अंदर लॉजिक, मतलब माउस को ट्रैक किस तरह करना है और क्या मतलब दिखाना है माउस की जगह पे, एक्स और वाई को यूज किस तरह करना है, वो दोनों लॉजिक्स मतलब साथ ही रखी होंगे हमने। इसको हम कॉपी करेंगे सारा, डॉग विद माउस, इसको हम रिप्लेस करेंगे डॉग के साथ। अभी देखें आप, मतलब लॉजिक हमें कॉपी करनी पड़ रही है पोजीशन को स्टोर करने वाली, ठीक है। सेट पोजीशन हो रहा है, तभी हम मतलब इसको कर सकेंगे डॉग के साथ। अब आपको ये नोटिस करना है कि इसमें डिफरेंस क्या आ रहा है सर। ये वाला कोड सेम है इन दोनों कंपोनेंट्स में। इसके अंदर, जिसके अंदर कैट है, और डॉग विद माउस के अंदर, ये सारा कोड सेम है, सही है। सिर्फ ये वाली लाइन चेंज हो रही है फिर, जहाँ पे हम कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं पोजीशन को, ठीक है। तो रेंडर प्रॉप्स आपको क्या कहता है, रेंडर प्रॉप्स ये कहता है आपको, ये एक पैटर्न है, वो ये कहता है कि इस वाली लाइन को आप एब्स्ट्रैक्ट छोड़ रहे हैं, इसको यहाँ पे एक प्लेस होल्डर मतलब छोड़ दें, प्लेस होल्डर कह लें या स्लॉट, मतलब यहाँ पे एक स्लॉट खाली छोड़ दें, और वो उस स्लॉट को आप फिल करें बाहर से। जब आप इस कंपोनेंट को यूज करेंगे ना इसको, तो वो वाला कोड जो है वो आप बाहर से इंजेक्ट करेंगे, और वो फिल हो जाएगा यहाँ पे, और वो एग्जीक्यूट होगा इस तरह। तो इस वाली लाइन को हम किस तरह एक्सट्रैक्ट करेंगे, इसको हम करेंगे जस्ट एक जावास्क्रिप्ट एक्सप्रेशन स्टार्ट करेंगे, और एक फंक्शन होगा हमारे पास जिसका नाम कुछ भी हो सकता है, लेकिन रेंडर प्रॉप्स मतलब एक स्पेशल टाइप ऑफ प्रॉप है, जिसको आप मतलब एक स्पेशल तरीके से पास कर सकते हैं। वो मैं दिखाता हूँ कि किस तरीके से पास करते हैं, हमने पहले भी करके देखा है। अगर इसका नाम आप रखते हैं रेंडर, तो इसको आप एज अ चिल्ड्रन कंपोनेंट भेज सकते हैं, ठीक है। वरना इसका नाम आप कुछ भी रख लें, क्या कर सकते हैं कंज्यूमर, और इसको जस्ट आपने स्टेट पास करनी है। स्टेट मतलब जिसमें वो कंपोनेंट जो है जो कंज्यूम कर रहा है, जिसमें वो इंटरेस्टेड है, अब वो किस में इंटरेस्टेड है, पोजीशन में जो आपने सेव करके रखी है अपने पास, ठीक है, रेंडर। तो इस तरह इस कंपोनेंट ने जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कौन सी इमेज करनी है रेंडर स्क्रीन पे, वो डेलीगेट कर दी, वो एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कर दी, ठीक है। अब इसको हम किस तरह करेंगे, कंज्यूम में आपको दिखाता हूँ। एक हम जेनेरिक बनाते हैं माउस ट्रैकर कंपोनेंट, माउस ट्रैकर बोलो बना हुआ है। ठीक है, माउस ट्रैकर अपने पास क्या रखेगा, एक्स एंड वाई कोऑर्डिनेट्स रखेगा, जैसे हमने इधर किया है माउस स्टैक के साथ। ये हम कॉपी करेंगे कोड और पेस्ट करेंगे इधर, और ऑन माउस मूव वाला कोड भी ये, ठीक है। इसके अंदर प्रॉप आएगी रेंडर, इसके अंदर एक फंक्शन आएगा जिसको हम यहाँ पे कॉल करेंगे रेंडर, और पोजीशन सेंड कर देंगे यहाँ पे, ठीक है। सही, अब इसके लिए एक और प्रॉपर्टी भी जरूरी होती है, आप करेंगे राइट, ये आपको इधर से मिल जाएगी रेंडर फॉर्म हाइड, ठीक है। अब चलते हैं ऐप डॉट जेएस के अंदर और इसको यूज करके देखते हैं अंदर माउस ट्रैकर, ठीक है। अब ये एक प्रॉप एक्सपेक्ट करता है जिसका नाम है रेंडर। अब यहाँ पे आपको बताना है कि एक्स वाई के साथ क्या करना है, मतलब इसको कौन से कंपोनेंट के साथ ग्लू करना है। फॉर एग्जांपल हम यूज करते हैं कैट कंपोनेंट, तो ये पोजीशन अपनी सेंड कर देगा इस पीस ऑफ कोड के अंदर, और उसको हम कंज्यूम करेंगे इस तरह, कैट एक्स इक्वल्स पोजीशन डॉट एक्स, वाई इक्वल्स पोजीशन डॉट वाई, इस तरह। तो वो जो लाइन हम कंपोनेंट के अंदर लिख रहे थे इस तरह, अब अगर यही हम स्ट्रेटजी फॉलो करते हैं तो हमें बहुत सारी वेरिएशंस बनानी पड़ती। कोई भी अगर हमें कंपोनेंट मतलब रिप्लेस करना है किसी के साथ, तो एक और माउस विद एक्स हमें क्लास बनानी पड़ती, कंपोनेंट बनानी पड़ती, ठीक है। अब इस वाले स्टेप को हमने एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कर दिया, तो वो हम कहाँ पास करें, इधर ये एक फंक्शन पास कर रहे हैं, जो फंक्शन अल्टीमेटली ट्रैकर कॉल कर रहा है अपने रेंडर मेथड के अंदर। ये ट्रैकर का अपना रेंडर मेथड है, ये सारा कोड, ये इस कंपोनेंट का रेंडर मेथड है, और इसके अंदर एक प्रॉप आ रही है जो इसको कॉल कर रहा है अपनी स्टेट के साथ, ठीक है। तो इसका रिजल्ट हम देखते हैं यहाँ पे। अच्छा, इसको हमने करना है रिटर्न, ये देखो। माउस की पोजीशन को ट्रैक कर रहा है कैट कंपोनेंट, ठीक है। अगर हमें इसको रिप्लेस करना है डॉग के साथ फॉर एग्जांपल, तो हमें जस्ट क्या करना पड़ेगा, अ, जहाँ पे इसको हम यूज कर रहे हैं ऐप जेएस के अंदर, इधर, अब इसने अपनी स्टेट जो है वो हमें विजिबल कर दिया है यहाँ पे, ठीक है। अब इस स्टेट को हम कैसे यूज कर रहे हैं, मैं इसको फॉर एग्जांपल करता हूँ एक पेन के अंदर यूज करता हूँ इसको। पेन, पेन क्या होता है, इनलाइन टेक्स्ट ब्लॉक होता है, ठीक है। और इसके अंदर मैं जस्ट प्रिंट करता हूँ इसको, पोजिशन, पोजिशन, सही है। अब इसकी रेंडरिंग के लॉजिक मैंने चेंज कर दी बिना कंपोनेंट के, चेंज कंपोनेंट को चेंज किया, ठीक है। फ्रॉम फॉर एग्जांपल div, div, position dot x, top position dot y, देखो div कंपोनेंट जो फॉर्म कर रहा है, तो यही सेम पैटर्न हमने यूज किया हेडर के डेटा प्रोवाइडर के अंदर। अगर आप इधर जाएंगे ऑफिशियल डॉक्यूमेंटेशन पे, तो ऊपर इन्होंने एक ऐसे ही टीजर दिया हुआ है कि इस तरह का कंपोनेंट हो सकता है डेटा प्रोवाइडर जिसका नाम है। इसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन नहीं नहीं है, आपको नहीं मिलेगी। तो ये क्या करता है, डेटा प्रोवाइडर फेच करके डेटा को अवेलेबल कर देता है एक फंक्शन के अंदर, फंक्शन के पैरामीटर के अंदर, ठीक है। अब रेंडर वो फंक्शन होता है, इसका नाम होता है इस फंक्शन का रेंडर, तो इसलिए हम इसको कहते हैं रेंडर प्रॉप। वरना ये जस्ट एक नॉर्मल प्रॉप है, इसका नाम आप कुछ भी रख सकते हैं, और इस कंपोनेंट के अंदर जाके इसको कॉल करवाना है, क्योंकि ये फंक्शन है तो इसको ये कंपोनेंट जाके कॉल करेगा और डेटा इंजेक्ट कर देगा, फिर वो डेटा आपको यहाँ पे रिसीव हो जाएगा, ठीक है। ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड प्रोग्रामिंग के अंदर भी एक डिजाइन पैटर्न होता है जिसे हम कहते हैं टेम्पलेट मेथड पैटर्न, ये उसकी तरह ही है, टेम्पलेट मेथड पैटर्न। ये मतलब एक एल्गोरिदम होता है, उसका एक स्टेप जो होता है वो कॉन्क्रीट नहीं होता, वो एब्स्ट्रैक्ट होता है, ठीक है। अब जो कॉन्क्रीट क्लासेस होती हैं जो उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करती हैं उस इंटरफेस को या उस एब्स्ट्रैक्ट क्लास को, वो उसको ओवरराइड करती हैं मेथड को। तो ये भी उसी उसी तरह का ही है, मतलब मोर और लेस। तो ये देखें इधर एक मेथड है एब्स्ट्रैक्ट इनिशियलाइज। अब ये फिर दो वेरिएशन हैं, मार्वियो और टैंक फाइट, अब ये ओवरराइड कर रहे हैं। तो इधर भी हमने ऐसे ही किया हुआ है कुछ, ट्रैकर के अंदर जाएं तो हमने एक रेंडर फंक्शन बनाया हुआ है जो हमें नहीं पता क्या उसके अंदर है, सही है। लेकिन ये पता है कि ये एक फंक्शन है। अब फंक्शन को हम कॉल कर रहे हैं फिर तक, अब वो क्या रिटर्न करता है, कौन सी एचटीएमएल रिटर्न करता है, उससे हमें कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है। वो प्लेस हो जाएगी इस डिव के अंदर, ये जो इंक्लोजिंग डिव है ये रिप्लेस हो जाएगा, वो जो हमने बाहर से कोड इंजेक्ट किया हुआ है, एक फंक्शन इंजेक्ट किया हुआ है, और उसकी जो रिटर्न में हमें कंपोनेंट मिल रहे हैं या रिएक्ट एलिमेंट्स मिल रहे हैं वो यहाँ पे पुट हो जाएंगे, सही है। समझ आया यहाँ तक किसी को? इसको मिसरा भी हम चेंज कर सकते हैं ताकि थोड़ा सा इंटुइशन मतलब बनाने में आसानी हो। माउस, माउस डॉट एक्स,
Abdul Fatah,
जी।
can we give some time to them so that they can repeat the code on their
Yeah,
PC.
sure.
So, I mean, you will take rest for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. You can commit the code on GitHub. They can take the code from there and they can just run on their own PCs. It will,
Okay,
you
so
know, help them.
yeah,
Okay.
I-
So let them
if you
give 15 minutes
if
to
you
do
look
this.
at the okay,
Yeah.
okay, sir, okay. If
Yeah,
you
you can.
look at the official documentation, uh, this code is a little bit lengthy. You can see here they are using the classes component. They haven't updated it yet, but we have used the functional approach. So you can notice that the code size is very different. Our code is much shorter than that.
Yeah.
Now,
So maybe you can commit the codes on GitHub so they can,
mhm,
take the code and replicate on their own PCs.
yeah,
Okay.
okay,
So you take a rest, then we will re-meet at 11:30. Okay.
okay,
So
sir.
okay, so we will re-meet at 11:30. You can stop the recording maybe and stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
Okay. So have you commit the code online, Abdul Fazal?
I'm committing it right now.
Okay. Okay, so he's committing the code online, so you can just take the code and replicate it on your own PCs. So he's available online. If you have any issue in running the code, please message him. Abdul Fatah, if they feel any
Mm,
issue, so they will
mm,
send you a message in a
sure.
chat box. Okay?
I have created a new branch with this name, Mouse Tracker.
Okay,
So if
please
you
listen
go under
carefully.
repository, switch. You have to switch to this branch to find this code. We have the
Okay, also commit the code of data table and list you created before.
I already pushed it to the Git repository. It is under master branch, and this one is under the Mouse Tracker branch.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
मुझे उनसे मैसेज करो। कल ही है। कौन सी लिंक है?